There is a movie called Heretic. Eric, do you know anything about this movie, Heretic? Hugh Grant, A24 release, I believe. Have you heard anything about this movie?
I just heard I was a horror movie where Hugh Grant was the villain, or at least Hugh Grant was in it. I assume he was a bad guy of some sort in this.
Right, Heretic, which was recently released in theaters. Hugh Grant plays Mr. Reed, and he accepts two young missionaries into his domicile. These missionaries are played by Chloe East and Sophie Thatcher. They're Mormons, and they're trying to convert him to the faith. The problem is, Mr. Reed just pretty much is not the kind of guy you want to convert into your respective religion, specifically in this case, being a Mormon. He turns the tables on them, and ultimately, these young women are trapped in his house, and they have to figure out how to get out of his house alive. It's written and directed by Scott Begg and Brian Woods. What's interesting is Beck and Woods previously worked with co-star Sophie Thatcher in The Boogeyman. They didn't direct her in The Boogeyman. They wrote the screenplay to The Boogeyman, which starred Sophie Thatcher. I think that movie was released about a year or two ago. Haven't seen it yet, but after watching Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East as the missionaries in Heretic, I want to see more films from them. They're very good actresses. And like Eric, like you said, it's a very showy role for Hugh Grant. It's not one of these. We all know how great of an actor Hugh Grant is, but there is none of that charm from Notting Hill or Four Weddings and a Funeral in Heretic. There is none of that. He's a very dark person. But is this, so you haven't seen the trailer, Eric? Are you thinking this might be a horror thriller?
I'm not sure. Well, Heretic kind of makes me think that it might be like something like Hereditary, maybe.
Very
Like
interesting.
like
Yes,
sort of like horror adjacent, maybe.
it might. I think horror adjacent might be interesting. It is horror, but there is a lot of adjacent stuff in this because it's a little bit, I think it's 111 minutes. I don't know what the specific running time is. I think that was it.
I think 69 minutes.
No, you and those numbers. Family show. Remember, family show 69. We like 69. Families, we like it's just a
Because we
magic
love
number.
math.
We just love math. Okay, but Heretic, it's very interesting because the big barrier to entry is a lot of this movie is a conversation about religion, about faith and where religion comes from, the validity of religion. And I think that's going to bore a lot of people. Do you want to hear Hugh Grant trying to talk to missionaries about whether their faith is valid or not? I mean, do you want to spend 30 minutes of just him talking about it and using
Actually,
up pop culture examples? Yeah. Well,
so is his take on this, is it like valid, or does it sound like it's like writ like when you have like characters talking to each other and one character has a point of view and the other character, like you can tell when the writer knows both points of view and can display them soundly, or if they have their own agenda and they strawman the point of view they don't agree with. Which
right. No,
version of it is it?
I think it's a balanced argument regarding faith and
Then
religion,
I'm
and
in.
that's very interesting. Yeah, and it uses a lot of pop culture references, which I'm not going to name because that will ruin a lot of Heretic. I think the joy or the interest part of Heretic is, at least for the first half, you want to see how this conversation goes between among the two young women, and Mr. Reed. Okay. And you want to see where they stand. These missionaries are also different. One of them, the character played by Sophie Thatcher, is a little bit more assertive and is more ready to face Mr. Reed head on. And the other one, played by Chloe East, is a little bit more meek and is trying to appease or please Mr. Reed so she can get out of the domicile alive. The key is you're figuring out, are they going to make it? Will they be killed? Is Mr. Reed completely evil, or is he just trying to prove a point, philosophical point about religion? All of these mysteries, I'm sure, have been uncovered in more depth with different reviews. That's why I'm giving a blanket statement. If you haven't read any Heretic reviews, just know that the warning is at least about 30 minutes in. It's still a real gradual, it's a gradual thriller. It makes you tense, but a lot of it is conversations about religion. But then second and third act kick in, and then all of the thriller and horror elements are very memorable. It's Yeah, I was surprised by the third act. I was surprised by a lot of things in the movie. And I think as a Catholic myself, I really love the conversation. So I was in the back for that. But then when it gets to the even darker elements where there might be bloodletting, there might be conflicts, I like that. I like that a lot. And yeah, right. Currently, it's Rotten Tomatoes, 92% from critics, audience members, 77%. So I think the divide is that the 77% is probably some people did not like all of that exposition laden stuff towards the first act, or maybe the first act and a half of Heretic. Currently in theaters, I'm giving Heretic 4.5 stars. I really, really love this movie, and it's worth. I think it's going to be a really worthy watch. Once again, I'm not going to watch the entire thing again, but I can see myself going back and forth and watching certain sections of this movie, and some really good reveals as well for Heretic. So 4.5 stars for Heretic. Would love to hear what you guys think of this Hugh Grant film. What did you think of Chloe East and Sophie Thatcher as the missionaries? Did this movie work for you, or was the first act the reason why you might not have really enjoyed Heretic?